We are ready to start.
Merit questions, are we answering?
So let's call this meeting to order. Mr. Oh, let's start with the agenda. Have you done a roll call?
No.
Roll call.
Illingworth,
Here.
Patterson,
Here.
Rusterholz,
Here.
Austin, and Dr. Neal.
So could we get a mic check? I feel like my mic is
Check.
really loud right now, and I don't necessarily need that, but Ron, thank you. Anybody else?
Hello. All right. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Secretary?
Illingworth,
Aye.
Patterson,
Aye.
Rusterholz,
Aye.
Austin, aye.
All right, tonight we will have a public hearing to gather feedback from stakeholders on the facilities use agreement with Merit Academy. And Dr. Neal, do we have cameras and is this live also this evening?
That is in fact the case, and I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Tuttle. Every time we do this, he unboxes, reboxes, and realigns those cameras. So Miles, thank you. Ron and Marcy up in the deck, thank you as well. And one more word, Mr. President, if I may. Ron, our hearts go out to you and your family. I know that you would like to be with your ill father this evening, but you've chosen to be with us. And it's truly a testament to your dedication to this district that rather than being with your ailing father, you are here. We wish you Godspeed as you travel to see him tomorrow in Fort Collins.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. I would also like to recognize and thank Officer Going for his long service and for being here tonight, helping keep our kids safe. And just want to appreciate your service to the school and our community, sir. All right, Dr. Neal, will you please explain the format this evening?
Of course. Members of the board asked that we would have this event last week, and the agreement between the facilities use agreement between Merit Academy and the WPSD was finalized about 7:30, 8 o'clock on Friday night. And so that is a document that was tentatively said, okay, this agreement is acceptable to both parties. What the board has wished is for feedback on that document. And so it was posted, I believe, that evening, if not Saturday morning. Staff stayed until the negotiation process ended on a Friday night, well past 8 o'clock, to get that posted. And so thank you, staff, for doing that. Questions were opened up on last Friday evening as well, stayed through Monday, and collected 60 questions. This evening, anybody in the audience can receive those questions. They are in the back of the room. And all of those questions have been rolled into or identified specific to the questions that are here. Some of the questions were very individually focused to certain members of the board. Per the president's request, I've removed names directed at certain members of the board. So you won't see maybe your exact question that asks Mr. Illingworth or Mr. Rusterholz, can you please explain to me? Rather, the questions have been pulled together with a lot of staff work to be generalized to the board. There are 3 sections in the questionings this evening. The first section is merit, to which the board and Mr. Rusterholz has asked for Merit to come up to the stage and answer those questions, and as led by Ms. Prawl. And so, Lindsay, thank you. You know, you're the public information officer, but you're also the MC for the evening. Thank you for dedicating the time tonight. It's not easy to be in her spot, so patience on her as she reads the questions and tries to clarify any questions. Second will be WPSD staff, Mr. Tuttle and Mr. Gustafson, alternating as needed for the questions that are bulleted throughout, quite extensive list. And third will be the board specifically. Don't know the pleasure of the board. We just haven't had a chance to talk on what you would like to do with your section. If you want to round robin, if you want to just take one, and another take another. The board were sent these questions last evening as they were finalized by staff as well. And so open for what that format that would look like. Then at the end of that, we'll go into a time of public response or public comment. limited to 3 minutes apiece on the microphone down at the bottom, at the main stage. Lindsay will be absolutely off the hook at that point and will not have to facilitate anything. Those lists of names are added electronically to my computer here, Mr. President. And so if you're signing up for public comment, please do so before the end of the question and answer time, and then we'll take public comment. Finally, I would like closing comments, if it'd be appropriate, sir, by the board this evening. We won't have another opportunity for me to hear your thoughts or your impressions. So if you wish to give those at the end, I would be interested in hearing those. The facilities use agreement, for the members of the public that have not read it, has 2 signatures on it. It has a signature of the president and a signature of the superintendent. It's a business document intended to facilitate a business transaction. It does not require a board vote. That being said, I serve at the pleasure of the board, and I need to know or want to know the pleasure of the board at the end of this evening. If you don't feel comfortable giving that opinion and you'd like more time to give that opinion, of course, I would accept that, and you can arrange a time, or we could talk about a future time that you'd like to give an opinion. But if we could leave here tonight with a clear understanding of what is the individual pleasure of certain members, more of a consensus, what is your thought or your theory behind this, that would really be helpful. And I also want to announce to the public that I will wait until the president is ready to sign the lease or the facilities use agreement. That's my mess. I always call it the lease. It's not a lease, it's a facility use agreement. I will wait until the president is ready to sign that and will not presume my role above his before he's ready.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. Any comments or questions?
No, I'm just going to add something real quick, like Dr. Neal mentioned about the board getting the questions last night. I think it's been the case for me. I think it's the case for all of us. To make it clear for the record, I did not see any questions at all that came in. I had no role in choosing.
Yes, that's correct.
What was selected for anybody. So the very first time that and I think probably the rest of us saw any questions of any kind was when the superintendent emailed them to us sometime in the evening last night. So.
Thank you, Mr. Illingworth.
Thank you, Dave.
Anything further? Any other comments? Dr. Neal?
Ms. Brawl, would you take is it the unenviable of the enviable seat?
Dr. Neal, would it be appropriate for WPSD staff and Merit Academy staff to come near this?
I think we're ready for Merit. If you all are kind of first on the agenda. And thank you to the public. There's not a science behind how this goes tonight. So we're just going to do the best we can. And if it's out of the order that we've just described, then I'll be flexible and would request for you to be flexible as well. And this is also being live streamed. So those at home, including my kids, go to bed. It's time to go to bed, almost. Get some dinner. And thank you, Merit, for coming up and joining us.
And just so that we stay on format, can we have President Rusterholz address the reason for holding this public hearing, please?
Can you talk just a little louder, Lindsay? I could only hear my name.
Sorry. Can you please address the reason for holding this public hearing?
Yes. The reason we're holding the meeting is because this has to be a very public issue. There are a lot of people that are very passionate on both sides of this issue. It seems that there's a very small middle in our community, and there's a group on one side, group on the other, some other sides, but it's a very passionate topic. We want to make sure that we've represented and heard from as many people as possible. I have had so many emails, so many coffees with people, so many lunches with groups of people, even just this afternoon. So I want to continue to hear. It was also a commitment that was made that I made that we would have a public hearing. We would take your questions, and I want to hold true to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Merit, the first question is regarding your current lease. Do you currently have a lease And how many students does the facility hold?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think we might piggyback on this one, but I want to first start by thanking the district for working with us in our partnership, and to thank this board and Dr. Neal for the recognition that we are all working together towards a common goal of excellent education for our students. We are all one community in this district boundary. All of our parents and community members pay taxes and shop locally, all of us. Most of us reside in the district. We are a public school system. This year, over 16% of our intention rolls were new families wanting to move to Woodland Park and attend Merritt Academy. I am sure WPSD has new families also moving in and registering. Together, we are here to provide educational choices to parents to open up the possibility of bringing young families up the pass. The question was about facility capacity. We appreciate Dr. Neal's attention to capacity for both educational entities. Merritt Academy is growing, and we've had to cap our classes and our expansion despite demand. We will level out at maturation. Our district buildings have been the topic of discussion for over 10 years due to capacity, declining enrollment, and taxpayer funding. This year, middle school is 400 students when it can comfortably hold 900. In 3 short years without Merritt Academy, this middle school is forecasted to be 285 students. That's a 31% capacity in a 110,000 square foot district building. The 200,000 square foot high school is now at 600 students, and in 3 years is forecasted to be 461 students, or 38% capacity. Dr. Neal, the staff, and this board recognize that we are in a critical position to answer a need throughout the district by providing underutilized space to Merritt Academy, a local, now district, public school that serves students throughout our district, and to address the facility need that will be an increased burden to taxpayers if it went unanswered. So regarding our current space, the question may have asked us is how financially responsible is it to maintain our lease and even to grow it? To invest in construction of a rented facility where tax dollars are not staying within the district, but instead are paid to a landlord outside of our district entity. When looking at the available space within district buildings paid by taxpayers for the purpose of housing public schools to educate local students, it seemed as if Plan A became Plan B and vice versa. There has been great collaboration among administrations to resolve these issues for both parties. It's a win-win that in that solution provides space originally purposed for education for our local districts, and it also begins to address the 10-year conversations regarding district building space and taxpayer funds, all within the timeline of summer when school is not in session. Did you want to talk about upstairs and?
Ms. Pecron, was that the answer?
No, we're gonna.
Thank you.
Unfortunately,
And
we're
I'm
stuck
glad,
with a
Gwen,
three-headed
you,
beast.
you just did it exactly right, because we had a 5-minute, is that what it is?
It was to address the question. I'm trying to be
No,
very.
no, they will. I mean, I'm just, the question was this, did we still maintain a time limit on the question?
We have
Because
not,
she
we're
was
not
within
maintaining
that
time limit on the questions.
Okay,
I do absolutely understand the entree or the soliloquy coming into this. Totally respectful, but I will ask for the question answer.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So we are currently located, for everybody that's been in the old Ace Hardware building, in 14,000 square feet, 13 something, 13 something. And it's not purpose-built like a school. So it's a little bit harder to answer. We use temporary walls and blankets for soundproofing. So we have adjusted those to address student needs, and we would continue to do so. So we don't have a total capacity other than a fire marshal capacity. There's no functional capacity because it wasn't designed as a school. We did put just under 180 in there this fall. We've had discussions with our great landlord about additional space that is available as part of, back to Plan B, Plan C. But frankly, the experience we've had with the district leadership and walking through the middle school has been really cordial and productive. And we've enjoyed that. So frankly, we have not pushed those discussions beyond the discussion phase for a modification of the lease for next year because it's been so productive with the district so far.
Thank you.
so
Miss,
do you?
I'm going to ask you to push the question because and with everybody that comes up here, including, all due respect, the board, and I'm going to try this one, and I know this is a new kind of space for Lindsay, so thanks for letting me kind of guide a little bit. Is there an actual number that you have contemplated that would fit in that additional space? Okay, thank you.
We got upstairs.
In the additional space upstairs that we were discussing with our landlord,
Yes, ma'am.
we do not have a solid number, because as John said, after we walked through the middle school on March 3rd, so almost 3 months ago now, those conversations were so collaborative and cordial and really solution-focused that the other conversations stopped, because this seemed like the most sensible and practical solution for everyone, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so you do have a current lease. Has Merit provided the district with a copy of its current lease?
No, we have never been asked.
Thank you.
The following questions are regarding your occupancy needs. Does Merit have any repairs or upgrades needed to occupy the space?
When you say the space, are you referring to the middle school space or to our current,
To the middle school space?
to the middle school space? There is, from the one walkthrough we did, there's one classroom that had a wall taken down in between two of the rooms that we need to put back up. And other than that, just the crash doors.
Thank you. What is the plan if it is not ready by August? What is your guys' plan?
In our conversations with Mr. Tuttle and Dr. Neal and others involved, we have no reason to suspect that it wouldn't be ready by August, so long as we can continue the process.
Do you have a plan if it's not?
No? No. As I said, all of our other planning stopped after that March 3rd meeting because of the collaborative nature. I walked through it with the principal of the school, and she actually said to me, I can't believe nobody came to me first because I have all this space that's not being used, and this would have been a really good solution. So after that meeting, as I said, the other conversation stopped. So no, we don't.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for you guys.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions that they would like to ask? Any brief questions? Not at this time, but if we have some questions, do you mind coming back up? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tuttle?
Thank you. I didn't get a chance. I was reading the notes ahead. Merritt, thank you for coming up. I appreciate that.
I put a water over there for you.
Sorry, I didn't know what podium I was going to be at. I stored my water at the wrong one.
Okay, so we just heard from Merit and their perspective on occupancy requirements. Are there any additional critical requirements for the district pertaining to occupancy? Specifically, did you solicit an engineer to help with deciding which modifications did or did not need to be considered to include curtains and crash doors?
Yeah, the facilities team consulted LKA Architects, which the district has a longstanding relationship with, for crash door replacement initially. They looked at aspects such as fire code, ventilation, access, egress. They're actually the designers of the middle school, so they're very familiar with it. For the gym curtain, we consulted with 3 contractors that specialize in these projects around the design and installation. And other modifications would include segmentation of the PA and bell systems, but that's a totally different kind of straightforward process with one vendor. We'll be moving a computer lab and incorporating it with a new STEAM space that would adjoin to the library and art room, and we're working on LKA Architects on that as well.
And has this list been agreed upon by both parties?
Not completely. We've communicated the list of capital improvement projects to Merit. They've done the same with what they've seen with their initial walkthrough, but we'll need to update both lists pending a walkthrough of the proposed Merit school site. We're working on a finalized list of known projects to be agreed upon by the district and by Merit.
And do you have a plan if it is not ready for occupancy by August?
So the way we're going about this is we're developing a plan to identify projects that are critical to initial occupancy. We'll work with Merit to discuss any contingency plans in the event that these critical projects aren't complete by the start of school, though.
We had quite a few questions about the facilities use agreement process. Can you speak to this process, including the timing which began before the charter was signed, how the duration was established, and which stakeholders provided feedback during the development of the lease?
Yeah, given the tight timeline requested by the board for this, the district started pretty early on with researching and drafting a facility use agreement for this kind of unique situation. We initially reached out to other districts and consulted with Cooperative Strategies for guidance on components for consideration within a facility use agreement like this. Our initial advisement on the facility use agreement came from Miller Farmer Law in consultation with Merit's counsel. During this process, the district shifted representation to Kaplan and Ernest, who finalized the lease while continuing to work with Merit's counsel. During the process, terms, conditions, and financial responsibilities were negotiated by both parties through attorneys, Woodland Park School District executive leadership, and members of both boards.
Was the DAC involved at all?
No, the facility use agreement wasn't identified as a role of the DAC.
Thank you. Has the district considered the impact on teachers and the time necessary for them to move classrooms? How do you plan to accommodate without affecting teacher morale and infringing on personal time off for the summer?
So although no decision has been made, the middle school staff planned to pack a majority of materials in their rooms for carpet installation this summer. Given the timing of probable signing of the facility use agreement, middle school administration coordinated student activities that allowed time in the school day for staff to pack the remainder of their rooms. Unfortunately, this has impacted the final week for both our teachers and students at the middle school. And we do deeply appreciate their flexibility and dedication to wrapping up the school year well for students. The district is discussing additional options that allow time for teachers to set up their rooms in the fall when they return as well.
What is the financial cost of the facility modifications for the shared spacing, and who bears the responsibility for this cost?
Tag.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I've got
Okay.
it. Thank you. The projected cost could range between $112,000 and $229,000, according to some of the folks that Mr. Tuttle has spoken with. That projection is estimated to be in the $150,000 range right now. Ultimately, according to, I don't know if they call it paragraph or section 2, paragraph B and item B, Merit will ultimately bear the cost for the modifications made to accommodate the school, the Merit School in WPMS. So any accommodations made to accommodate Merit will be borne by Merit. The district, what we'll do is then we'll initiate the improvements, okay, work on that, and then withhold that financial obligation from monthly flow through to the charter school. So as we receive per pupil funding, whatever that monthly amount is for the initial construction and modification costs, we'll hold that back.
Thank you.
Sure.
We also had quite a few questions about security concerns. Could you address the security surrounding the common doors, each entity's security protocols, and the keys and key card system?
Yeah, the three big components there. For physical keys, the district will provide unique keys for Merit that exclusively allow access to the agreed upon classrooms and offices. Key card entry will be partitioned by school, with Merit Academy key cards allowing access to only Merit exterior doors, and Woodland Park Middle School key cards allowing access to only Woodland Park Middle School. The district will maintain a key card system, the key card system and all reporting and logs. Both Merritt and Woodland Park Middle School utilize the Raptor system for instant screening of all visitors at all schools. Both schools will then need to follow a unified security and emergency operations plan as well.
What have been the discussions around traffic flow for student drop-off and pickup?
Start and end times will likely have to be offset. Woodland Park Middle School families will utilize the current flow lane in front of the building, while buses will continue to use the bus loop. And the Merritt families will utilize the bus loop for drop-off and pickup.
Okay. We had a large number of questions referencing the potential of shifting the allocated space for Merritt or the middle school based on future growth or decline. Can you talk about how you came up with the layout, which appears to be in favor of Merritt?
Yeah, so the initial layout addressed current and projected enrollment for both Merritt Academy and Woodland Park Middle School while preserving current programming at the middle school. Additionally, the partition allowed for a minimum of 2 sets of bathrooms, and this was the layout that Cooperative Strategies used as a basis for their feasibility study.
Excuse. Oh, I was just going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Miles, could you give some clarification for me? I need to know, when I look at the map of the school, can you tell me what percentage approximately of the square footage of the school will WPSD middle school students have?
Yeah, if you include, so not just classroom spaces, but other common spaces, specialized spaces and things like that, that puts them at around 70% of the space by square footage. I haven't gone in with a tape measure, but that's kind of the rough estimate looking at space.
Okay, so you're saying about 70% will be for the Woodland Park Middle School?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
all right,
correct.
thank you. Was there anything else? you
Yes,
wanted to ask?
the initial.
Your microphone?
The initial division in the map, I remember first seeing it around the time that we did that first town hall at the middle school. My understanding is that initial division, and it's pretty much remained much the same to
Correct.
this day, that was done by Woodland Park School District staff.
Correct.
So that was not something that was sent to us by Merritt Academy saying, hey, can we have this amount of space in these classrooms, right?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so that was generated by us. So was it done to favor Merritt Academy?
I don't understand. What are your,
This question says that it appears that this was done to favor Merritt Academy, but in fact, the division of classrooms was actually created by Woodland Park School District personnel, right?
correct.
So it was not done to favor Merritt Academy, was it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think that was the intent.
Okay. It would be strange if our people had a bias in favor of Merritt Academy, right? Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Can you also talk about what will happen if Merritt or the middle school grows out of their assigned space?
Yeah, as detailed in the feasibility study, there is room for growth for Merritt Academy. There are concerns if the middle school were to experience unexpected growth. There's a clause in the contract to revisit possible shifts in space due to enrollment in the fall. I think it's November, December of the 2023-2024 school year for the following year. And additionally, the district owns multiple portables, which have been used in the past for classroom space.
Okay, and can that space be easily or reasonably altered or shifted?
Well, the middle school building wasn't originally designed to accommodate two separate schools. So due to the school's open design concept, access to spaces designed for special needs students and locations of dedicated and specialized spaces, it appears an additional redesign would be difficult.
If the district decides to reassess the FUA during the term of the agreement, what process will you use to hear feedback and ensure you act on behalf of the community?
I know this question was assigned to me, but I'd like to defer this to the board and the superintendent. Actually, this is above my pay grade.
I was looking for this question again because we went over it when they first came in yesterday. Can you read the question again, Lindsay, please?
Yes. If the district decides to reassess the FUA during the term of the agreement, what process will you use to hear feedback and ensure you act on behalf of the community?
There is not currently a process described in the FUA to be able to renegotiate that. That's kind of the point of the FUA, is that it would be a 3-year standing agreement. As we get closer to the end of that 3 years, I would presume a similar process to what we've gone through as far as community feedback, looking at Merritt's needs, look at district's needs, getting an external vendor to come and give a professional engineering opinion on growth or attrition, looking at where the district sits as far as a facilities master plan, which at that point will be in year 2 of a 5-year master plan. So all of that would happen at the beginning of the 3rd year of the lease, sort of.
Thank you. A couple of questions came to us regarding programming concerns at the middle school. Can the district guarantee that WPMS students will in fact maintain all programs as promised verbally to the stakeholders at previous public presentations and meetings through this facility sharing process?
Yeah, so to speak to programming, earlier this spring, the middle school received their staffing allocations based on projected student enrollment, and any necessary adjustments to staff were completed without impact to the grade level teachers and enrichment teachers. This means that all current programming will be preserved for next year, including all enrichment offerings. And additionally, the STEM, art, and library media specialists have been collaborating over the past quarter to launch a comprehensive middle school STEAM, that's science, technology, engineering, art, and math program. This program is on track to launch for the 2022-2023 school year as part of the district's innovative classroom initiative proposed prior to winter break by Dr. Neal. Plans to relocate the recycling center have been in the works over the past year and will come to fruition this summer regardless of the current facility usage. And this shift allows the middle school to incorporate woodshop type life skills activities to the family and computer science course for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And finally, prior to the pandemic, the middle school planned to incorporate environmental education activities and grade level excursions to their programming. As we hopefully enter a post-pandemic era, the middle school will re-engage staff with this vision. And then as to the reduction in space, the administration met with a task force of staff to develop a plan for allocating and the defined new space. This team outlined classroom spaces for all core and enrichment teachers, as well as special education center-based programs. Smaller spaces were designated for special education pullouts, English language learners, and counseling groups. Finally, office spaces were designed for administration, counselors, and grant specialists. And this group continues to redefine options for small group breakout spaces.
Thank you. There have been concerns over the timing of construction to accommodate this FUA. Can you address the concerns surrounding supply chain issues and a shortage of contractors?
Yeah, we are seeing supply chain delays and contractor shortages. This has significantly impacted timelines on other projects we've had this year. We also have to work, of course, within our guidelines, within policy for vendors for large projects. And for most, we either have to solicit 3 quotes or submit an RFP. It's a request for proposal that asks for bids. These things take time in order to give vendors time to respond. I acknowledge that this is an extremely tight and optimistic timeline, but due to the fact that we haven't been able to officially bid for any of these, I can't really speak to current conditions for these projects.
Okay, and last question.
I'm going to push the question. Mr. Tuttle, do you believe you have enough time to get the work done this summer?
It's
That's an-
optimistic. The longer we go without a lease, the less I'm inclined to say yes, that we can have all these done by the start of school.
Thanks for calling it a lease. It's a FUA.
I mean, sorry, a facility.
'Cause I do that all the
It's
time.
not a lease. It's a facility use agreement. It's different.
So you kind of just answered the last question,
Yeah,
but I'll ask it anyways. Is there time to get this completed by August? And if not, will construction take place during school?
As we really, like you just asked, we really don't know. We'll do everything possible, but it's highly dependent on what I mentioned before, contractor and supply chain availability. Many contractors book their summers well in advance. We are at an acute disadvantage with that. We hope to get on their schedule with a short time frame for an August completion. If critical projects aren't completed by the time students return, we'll initiate the contingency plans mentioned earlier. Additionally, construction on non-critical projects could occur after school hours or on weekends, depending on the scope of work and contractor availability. It is not our intent to have construction occur during the school day.
Miles, what are we doing with the music room that was flooded in the middle school a couple months ago? Have we delayed all construction and repair on it until the summer?
No, so that's a,
Shall I protect you on this one? It's a really sore subject for Miles.
It is. So that was an insurance claim carried out initially in October, and if you'll remember, the Boulder County fires happened in November, and it appeared that SIDSIP shifted a lot of their focus to that. So it's really just slowed down. So we've had slowdown in the process as far as getting approvals for claims, and then we're many weeks out on ordering a lot of those materials, just like we've seen everywhere else. The two aren't really related at all. But Dr. Neal's right. This is a subject of frustration.
So we've been denied several times by our insurance carrier as being too expensive. Miles has fought the good fight and said, we're not too expensive. Time to pay. And so they've been back and forth for many months.
And we got a check last week for some of the things that we've been asking for since October.
Well, Miles, I've known you for a couple years, so I know you always give 110% and your work is always outstanding. And I wasn't intending to put you on the spot about the progress on it. My point,
he's just frustrated.
I'm not mad at any of you about it. I'm just mad about the situation.
My point, though, was that that's an example of a project that where we do make improvements, repairs, and even construction during a school year, if necessary. That's not an entirely uncommon or unheard of thing to do if necessary.
That's a good point.
Have we had construction go on during the school day or somewhere?
So
in that case, we did.
Yeah, we did. And that one was unavoidable. So that wasn't something that we planned. That wasn't something that we put on the books. It happened. And so it forced our hand as far as making that happen. And it's been much more than just an inconvenience. It's completely relocated the band program and the ensemble room. And we've had to construct temporary storage for instruments, and everything's been messy. It's impacted that program pretty significantly.
But what it demonstrates is the ability of our committed staff and leaders to be flexible, to make things work even when it happens unexpectedly with no planning at all, and even when the insurance company isn't cooperative and we have a wildfire that devastates part of this state. It doesn't stop the job of educating our students and taking care of them from getting done. And you, Miles, and all of our committed staff who are involved in that deserve credit. And I'm glad that opportunity, that example is there to show how we face that sort of adversity and overcome. Thank you.
That's all I have for you, Miles.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job on the other side.
Members
over
of the
there.
board, thanks for letting me jump in to defend Miles a little bit. He's had a full year, and Dave, thanks for the patience on that question. I do want to recognize that Miles has put a lot in on his first year, and the band room is literally the Achilles heel of his world. And so, thank you, Miles.
I do have a question. I do have another one, because I'm surprised that we've had construction during the school year. Our insurance company is okay with us doing construction during the school day? I mean, obviously it is. I'm just.
Yeah, and the location of that band room makes that far more doable. It's pretty close to to some external doors, and so it's not impacting other programs. This isn't, if it were construction happening in the middle of the school building, it'd be more impactful to other
Yeah,
programs.
there was no trash removal, moldy carpet lockers that had to go through anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it was a complete excavation, right? Ceiling tiles, everything else.
Oh, everything gutted.
It was
yeah.
able to be at the farthest away corner. It went out the back
It was the
door.
lowest point in the building too, so the water and glycol didn't travel anywhere else. There were many factors that played in our favor as far as like at least being able to do initial cleanup and some of the mitigation and then move forward with it. But something to note is even with a project like this, remember this happened in October and it's June and we're still awaiting payment and supplies on things.
Okay.
Miles,
just-
total cost of that project, just for comparison, sorry.
Oh, less than $1 million, more than $1. I mean, we're at, so like carpet is 66,000 probably. And then we have the cabinetry, which is probably pretty similar in pricing. And then we have, I have to remember how many tens of thousands the ceiling tiles are, because those have to be acoustic tiles. And then to put the acoustic treatment on the walls and,
3 to
and then-
500,000.
yeah, I mean, it'll be a $500,000 project easy when it's all done right. And some of the slowdown has been like, we can hurry through and slap stuff together, or we can do it right and put together a band room that's equal to or better. Oh, the
I know
numbers
the-
guy's
the-
up here. He's going to correct me on the pricing.
Tag.
Oh,
I'm not sure if the question is about disruption as far as noise or whatnot with regards to construction during the day or with regards to people being on campus. Just know that whenever we have contractors, we engage in independent contractor agreements, and this is vetted through our insurance pool. And they're supposed to vet their folks, provide us with evidence of insurance, be bonded and all that kind of stuff. So they become responsible for their employees. The noise, we try and avoid that. We've had other construction situations. I taught here a long time ago when this whole thing was being added.
Oh.
And there was some construction during the day, but most of it occurred off times. So not typical. We replaced the roof on the middle school and avoided doing much of that work during the day, although there are some disruptions.
Right.
So approaching it from two ways, trying to minimize disruption, but also make sure that the people coming on are vetted and safe for the kids.
So when you say vetted, because that was going to be my next question, if contractors are coming into the school building, those workers they've been background checked and they're okay to be around our
Right,
kids?
that's part of our due diligence to do
Okay.
business with those particular contractors. So, sorry, Miles.
Brian always says those things so much better than I do anyway. So.
Any other questions for Miles?
As soon as he gets to his seat, I will.
Okay.
No, okay.
Thank you,
right,
Miles. Thank you,
thanks.
Brian. All righty, board members, are you ready? What data does the board have that illustrates the benefit of this FUA to current and next year's WPMS students?
Chris, you don't want to take the lead on that one?
If there is any data, I have not seen it.
Well, I'll tell you what I've seen, which is the enrollment and the utilization factors at the middle school. The middle school is supposed to have about 900 students in it. That's its functional capacity, according to the consultant that was hired by the superintendent to explore the feasibility of this sort of merger, as well as the master facilities plan that's goes beyond this, is actually got a lot of different moving parts. But that school is, according to anybody who looks at it, about 50% capacity. That doesn't change what we, the taxpayers, pay for that facility. That doesn't change what each student receives through state funding to attend school at one of those facilities. And the other data that's important is when we looked at the idea of merit coming into there, we take that building from a 50% utilization factor to about 80%. well within what our consultant called the sweet spot for the functional capacity or utilization of any sort of school building. In fact, I was struck, Susan Miller told us at one of the meetings that kind of the point at which you need to worry about a school being over extended is if it's kind of at like 110% capacity for like 5 or 6 straight years. That's when you're stressing your structure, I guess all other things being equal. And the only thing we're stressing right now is the patience and the budgets of the taxpayers who are seeing their taxes going up through mill levy overrides that are being forced on us by the state. And they're seeing the enrollment at the buildings go down. So they're paying money for buildings that are getting more and more empty. They're paying for empty space. And that is not consistent with the values of this community. It's not consistent with the promises that we made in our campaign to be responsible stewards of the taxpayer money. The other data point that's really key was also from the feasibility study, which shows that based on the current enrollment projections, if we do nothing, in 5 years, that building is at about 30% capacity, which is a kiss of death. The other thing I would add is that this discussion has maybe sort of consumed those who follow school board politics for about 4 or 5 months. But it has actually been going on in this community for years. There have been discussions about consolidating schools at buildings since about 2012. There have been at least 2 times that studies were done by previous school boards, and they received recommendations that they could not continue on the path they were with 5 different school buildings with the enrollment shrinking without end. And nothing was done. So those are the data points that I think illustrate the problem and have provided us with a pathway to a sort of immediate Band-Aid to the problem at one of our schools. It does not solve the problem at other schools because other schools are also facing this sort of critical shortage where they are way below the functional capacity and starting to raise question of how we're justifying taxpayer funding of buildings that are empty. So that's the important data I think that everybody needs to keep in mind. This is data that's available on the Colorado Department of Education website. It's data that's available on our website through the feasibility study that's been done and published. And I think this is something that is a win-win for the Woodland Park School District, for its new charter school. It's a win-win for this community. It's a win-win for the students, the teachers, and the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for public comment if you'd like to follow up. No, we can't interact with the audience at this time in the meeting.
If I may, so like I said, if there is data, I have not seen it because the question is specific to the benefit of the current or next year's middle school students. And so that being the question, I have not seen any data.
Thank you.
I do believe we have data out there, and it's from the facility master's plan where Mrs. Miller did indicate that in a few more years, the Woodland Park Middle School would be down to 30%. That is the basis of our data. And it enables these middle schoolers to stay in the middle school, because if we do not do something in the middle school.
I'm going to step in here and I'm going to take a recess for the board for 5 minutes until proper decorum is brought to the meeting. Thank you. really sorry we had to do that. And we welcome any questions during the public comment time. All right, Lindsay, I'm sorry. Can you continue, please?
Yes, thank you. The community has voiced strong opinions regarding opportunities for feedback. The following questions speak to this desire. What data can the board point to that indicates the majority of the residents support this lease agreement?
I can say the data that I have accumulated personally is personal experience. Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, I've talked to a lot of people, and I have to say that our community is divided. I don't have any specific studies that have been done. I know that I have heard loudly before the election that people wanted to have school choice. This was a method of school choice, and that's one of the reasons why I was in favor of doing it. I didn't know how or where, what part of a facility that students would be coming into or would be able to come into. I knew that I was in favor of chartering a school. It wasn't until our administrative staff came up with the idea of the possibility of using the middle school. So as far as data, no, all mine comes from talking to people in the community.
And do you feel like that represents the majority?
I do. It's hard to say how large of a majority, but I would say a significant amount of people. Just this afternoon, I met with some people that represented a large group of people, and they are highly in favor, applauding. They wanted to know that they were behind the decision, that we would have difficult times, but it was certainly worth it. So yes, I've tried to be very fair in talking to many people, from staff, from people in the community, people with children in the school, so yes, I've heard both sides of this. And I do believe it is a majority.
Do you feel like the community has received adequate time to review and provide feedback, especially with the lease going out over the holiday weekend?
Lindsay, if I may, can
Yeah.
we circle back to that previous
Absolutely.
question? I'm so sorry.
No, you're
I
fine.
didn't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to say about the data, specifically connected to the majority of the residents in support of this lease agreement. I'm actually spending a few minutes here, and I apologize. I want you to know that I'm not actually on my phone texting anyone. I'm actually looking for the data that Corporate Strategies, when they surveyed the community, what data they got back. It's actually really difficult to find. So I don't actually have that handy.
What was on which topic?
It had to do with any data that points to the majority of the residents in support of this lease agreement or this facility use agreement. And so I'm drawing from memory because I don't actually have it in front of me because I'm on the WPSD website and I'm looking for that information. But what I do recall is that the majority of those surveyed were actually not in favor of the facility use agreement. And that's the actual data. Any subjective data that I pull from in conversations that I have, that's all subjective to my sphere. And so if I'm not careful, even as someone who wants to try to hear from a broad spectrum of the citizens of this district, even though that is my stated intention, I run the risk of finding myself with a confirmation bias based on the groups that I orient towards. And so the actual hard data, like a third-party pulse read on the community, showed that the vast majority were actually not in favor of this facility use agreement within this community. And that's the only data that I can point to. So I would say that there's no actual data that indicates that the vast majority of the residents support this facility use agreement.
I have seen that data, and the data was overwhelmingly from the people that took the survey was to make no changes, to do nothing. And I believe as a board member that's responsible for a $39 million budget, we need to do something.
And I would add from that survey, which, let's put it in perspective a little bit, it had about 400 people that responded to it. It's a survey. There's a lot of self-selection that goes into that. There was no specific question about, what do you think about Merritt moving into the middle school building? That was not specifically asked. So there was no majority position on that one way or the other. What was asked specifically, though, were several sort of consolidation options about like, well, what if we combined the middle school and the high school into one building? Or what if we had sixth grade leave our elementary schools and go to the middle school? Or what if we had seventh and eighth grade only join the high school? All those options were put out there with the idea of basically putting us in a position where we didn't have to have 5 different school buildings open through the various mergers or consolidations and rearranging of certain grades. What has always been paramount to our administration and this school board when dealing with this issue is how can we responsibly operate school buildings in a way that causes the least disruption to the current plan and doesn't result in people having to lose their jobs or parents having to send their kids miles away from where they live or anything like that. And so that's the kind of stuff that was in that survey. And when you look at the various options presented, there was a majority of like 60 to 70% against any change that was proposed. So yeah, the clear majority, like Sue said, is do nothing. But you cannot do nothing when your enrollment is at 50% in every building, or when it's projected to be at 30% in every building in 5 years. Doing nothing is not an option. And the reality is there are 2 scenarios facing this school board and this community over the next several years. There are issues that have been facing the school board and this community for a decade now and have not been addressed. And they are, you either get enrollment up by hook or by crook, either because you believe that suddenly families are going to start having babies, or you believe you're going to offer options, opportunities, and choices to the people of this surrounding community, that people will move up here, will bring their families here, like I did when I moved here 4 years ago and brought 4 children, like Superintendent Neal did when he moved here about a year ago and brought 2 children, like many other families that we all know who fell in love with Woodland Park and moved here and brought little kids with them. It's not just about birth rates. It's about having an educational community that people are willing to come here to be a part of. People go to Colorado Springs because they have options. They have lots of school districts down there. They have lots of charter schools. They specialize in different things. If your child is a really good swimmer, we have families that move down to either Manitou or to like Vanguard because they want their kids to be a part of an elite team. We have to have those choices and those options here to compete with Colorado Springs because we can offer things that Colorado Springs cannot. You cannot live in Colorado Springs and be part of a small, welcoming, warm community. You can't be surrounded by the beauty of Pikes Peak everywhere you go. Woodland Park is special, and we have to do this in order to stop having a school get closed, because that's it. You either get enrollment up or you close the school. There's no in between, and this community is going to have to make that choice in the next several years. There's no in between. So when you get a survey that says, do nothing, that's not a survey that I think is ultimately worth a great deal. And there's another data point out there that Mr. Austin hasn't had the benefit of going through, and that was the election. Sue and David and I campaigned for these seats, and the idea of chartering merit was a part of that campaign. The idea that a school might need to be closed was a part of that campaign. So these issues were put to the voters, and it wasn't no 300 to 400 people that responded. We had votes in the thousands. I think it was about 6,000 votes in every seat. So that's a survey that gives us a data point that's worth remembering as well.
Thank you, Mr. Illingworth. Anyone else?
Do you feel like the community has received adequate time to review and provide feedback, especially with the lease going out over the holiday weekend?
I'll go first. We had been discussing it. There has been drafts out floating around, I believe, of the facility use agreement. We have been discussing it. I do wish that there was more time to be able to discuss it, but if there are deadlines that if there's any possibility for this coming school year, we needed to move quickly on that. That is the main thing, that if we were to delay further, then there was no sense in talking about this at this time. Mr. Neal?
Anything else on that question? I wanted to.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. Okay. So was it long enough? I don't know how long enough would have been. Yes, certainly a lot of people did contact me that it was not long enough.
Well, just keep in mind, the FUA is the culmination of months of work and negotiation, chiefly between the Woodland Park administration and Merritt Academy. And we kicked this off in a very public way with a town hall at the middle school, first week of March. So, and like Mr. Tuttle pointed out, you know, the overall map hasn't really changed from then to now. So it's not the circumstance that, whoa, for several months we were told X, and now late at night we get Y. People were promised at the middle school town hall that there were more details coming, and those details have been put out there. We've been getting public comment on this for months. We solicited the questions for this town hall. We're going to hear more public comment at this town hall as well. So it's been I think it's not been hidden from anybody. This has been very public. And like I said earlier, it's practically consumed the work of the administration and the focus of the school board for months now. So I do think that there has been plenty of time to let this sort of be bounced around. And soon it will be time to act on whether or not we want to go forward with what has been put out there, which it should be noted. I mean, what's been put out there is absolutely the work of compromise and prioritization between the Merritt Academy and the school district. And so it's a document that I think probably both sides think is something that can be done and is fair and reasonable, but is not necessarily what either side walked into the room asking for. And so I think it's a good document. It's been a good process, and the result is a good compromise. Thank you.
Anyone else?
For any board member that would like to know, the previous survey was on page 29 of cooperative strategies. And it is correct to what Sue and Dave indicated, is the majority of the community did not support consolidation.
Of any kind.
Of any kind, that is correct. So kudos to staff in the audience that are trying to pull together answers while you're asking them. So thank you for sending those in.
Some current WPMS families are awaiting the decision of this FUA before deciding whether or not to continue their kids' enrollment at WPMS. How does the district plan to address the expected increased enrollment decline that will accompany the execution of the agreement, specifically addressing those families that are now intent on avoiding both WPSD and Merit?
Well, I can tell you that numbers wise, we know that bringing Merit Academy in is bringing about 311 students. I have not heard of 311 students who have pledged to leave this community and these schools as a result of that. So although I'd hate to see anybody go, I don't think we're going to see a net decline like, oh, you got 300 here, but now 1,000 have fled. But philosophically and legally, it's every parent's right to decide in this state where to send their child to school. That was not a right that I had growing up in Texas, where you can only go to the school that's in your designated sort of zip code. And if you didn't like the school, there wasn't anything you could do about it. And hopefully you had a good housing market that you could sell and move somewhere else, which is what my family did. But here, everybody has the benefit that they have those sorts of options. We have provided a new option to everybody in this community. All the 5 schools that we've always had are here, and now there's a 6th one. And you can choose, instead of choosing from one of 5, you can choose for one of 6 this year. But if people just can't stand bringing in a new school and bringing in 300 new children who pretty much were already residents of this district and paying taxes in this district, if they are so opposed to the idea that every child in this community is treated equally by this school board, they have that right to choose to go somewhere else. And I wouldn't begrudge them exercising the right that we're trying to provide to all our families up here.
Sue? You know, I would be very disappointed that they left. I would like to do what I could to persuade them to stay. It's sad that they would make that decision. How do we plan to address the expected increase in enrollment decline? Well, I hope that they don't. I don't know what else to say with them. I would be happy to meet with them and discuss their concerns. Dr. Neal, do you have any way that you would want to address that?
President Rusterholz, I would like to say that, you know, we go into this collaboration with a positive attitude. This has never been done before. We don't know what the outcome. And, you know, I hope people haven't made up their minds just with the illusion that it's not going to work out. We have Dr. Neal and his admin staff, we have Merit, and children are getting caught in the crossfires. There's plenty of room in this school. And I think we need to look at it from an adult perspective and think about the positives and what gifts that we can give this. This has never been done before. And I think it's people that are looking at it already wanting to leave. They don't know what is happening. We need to give it a chance, and we need to think of it positive, and we need to work together as a community.
If I can just add what I was thinking earlier along those lines, is, you know, change is difficult no matter where it is. You know, I remember going from elementary school to our high school, and in Girard, in Pennsylvania, that was 7th through 12th grade, and I was scared to death as a 6th grader going into the 7th grade, and I didn't want to go. And change is just difficult, and I think that in the long run, with the way things are going with traditional public schools across the United States, we are not unusual in this. This is happening across the nation. These conversations are happening. And one thing, and another thing that I've always thought is find a way to say yes. It's easy to say, it's easy to find why we can't do something, but I think that in the long run, this will be very beneficial to all the kids in our school, I think, in our school district. So all 6 schools. So thank you.
So if I could briefly, I don't know that the district has a plan. If they do, I have not heard it. So that's a direct answer to a direct question. And I think what I would like to just offer here is really actually pointed towards the resiliency of the middle school staff that I've spoken with. And so I want to simply point to the fact that I have full confidence that the staff will make the Woodland Park Middle School the best that it can be, regardless of any circumstance they might find themselves in. And I sincerely believe that. And so to the parents that are contemplating a move, a shift out, I would ask you to consider placing really the majority of your trust and hope in the resilience of the middle school staff and the administration that oversees that building, because I believe that that's where your kids are going to, they're the difference makers. And I think that I can draw not just from speculation, but from witnessing the last 2 years of their resiliency. And that goes for all of the staff within the district, but specifically with the middle school, I would point parents to that hope that the staff will make every effort to provide an excellent education for your students within the middle school. And that would be my orientation. Again, honoring the fact that they will have a choice, and sincerely, just feeling the loss if parents choose to take their children out of the middle school. But understanding, of course, then that the plan for the middle school administration and staff is to do their very best, and I have full confidence in that. Thank you.
Has the board taken or will the board take into consideration any information from the Facilities Master Plan survey before finalizing this FUA? If so, please elaborate.
Well, this is kind of a repeat of what I've already answered in another question and what several of us have discussed. I think actually all of us have talked about what we learned from the Facilities Master Plan survey, what it showed, what it didn't show, how it was helpful and everything like that. And there was more to it than simply, hey, do you want to shut down a school, or hey, do you want to send the middle school into the high school? There was a lot of questions in there about what type of educational programming do you want to see? We saw overwhelming results in favor of increasing sort of any sort of education or course that's going to go towards preparing our young students to go either not just on to college, but into other careers, whether that's what you might call a trade, or whether it's something like military or first responders was something that we saw. There was a heavy emphasis on that, as well as on STEM and STEAM. I'm not sure how the art gets mixed in with the science, technology, engineering, and math, but apparently that's a thing now. There was an overwhelming majority who wanted basically like, what can we teach in these buildings that is concrete, that has tangible benefit to our students so that when they graduate, that they have as many doors open to them to walk through as they choose. This is what we call a place of becoming. And the message I got from that survey was that we want to make sure that our kids have the opportunities to become whatever they want to be, whether it's a police officer, whether it's a member of our armed forces, whether it's a nurse or a doctor, whether it's somebody who starts their own business in construction or engineering, anything. And that's what the community from that survey wants to see.
And I'll add to that, I know there's concerns about the middle school and having it over capacity, but the fact is our other schools are declining as well. So to add on to what Director Illingworth is saying, we have room in all our facilities to do the STEM, to do junior ROTC, to grow and to give options. So it's not, this is a bigger picture than just the FUA about merit. It's a start to give school choice, and we have a lot of room to grow in our schools. And so we need to look at the big picture. We need to look down the road. We need to we have a plan for 5 years, and it's going to help grow when we have half-empty facilities to do that.
So Sue, just to be clear, are you taking into consideration any of the information from the survey in your decision?
Is that a follow-up for Sue, or is that, okay?
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Are you taking any of the information from the survey into consideration when you're making the decision on the FUA?
Yes.
If I can follow up on Sue, we were both on the Facilities Master Plan Committee with Susan Miller's company presenting. And as I recall, she had said when she was talking about the facility use and the sweet spot and where a school was a great place for the student population to be. She was quite confident that it would very comfortably, using that information that we received from her, that it was a quite doable thing, that schools are designed to be at a certain capacity, and I don't remember exactly what that was, that capacity, but I clearly remember her saying that, yes, this was a very doable plan.
Specific to the survey, I don't believe that that information, as was described earlier, is actually pertinent, specific to the facility use agreement with Merit Academy, which brings me back up to one of the first questions about what data points are we using, not only if there's a benefit to the current and next year's students, but also indicating what the majority of the residents want and will impart. I think this is actually the point of the questioning, that there's a way for us in the process of this to have done the due diligence of asking more specific questions related to those things that I've just described here that were asked of us. And so coming back around to my original answer, the answer is we don't have that data. And that data is not then being used to help us finalize this FUA.
I agree with you, Director Austin. However, the facts were we weren't discussing merit when we were participating in the committee for the facility mastery plan. So, and that's why there were no leading questions on the survey out to the public and regarding specifically to Merit Academy, because we're comparing apples to oranges. So I agree with you that there should have, maybe we should have had more communication with the facilities usage agreement. But again, that the facilities usage agreement is between the administration of the Woodland Park School District and Merritt Academy. The board was not involved in developing that facilities usage agreement. And as Dr. Rusterholt said, we are in a crunch for time, and it affects the opening in August for both schools. We're trying to look out for all the students. But as for the facility mastery plan, we are not allowed to talk about Merritt in the discussions. It was the facilities and whether Merritt would fit in, and that was the only thing that was discussed. And this survey was hired by the previous board, and that's what we had to work with.
Anyone else? Woodland Park School District has been a regional leader in returning to in-person learning during the pandemic. Part of the district's reintegration plan is the use of available space to prompt physical distancing and a healthy learning environment. Is this the appropriate time to move away from that practice? And if so, why?
I have to say, I'm not aware of anything about this FUA that is causing us to move away from any practice that we've been following in terms of making sure our students are safe and healthy. Dr. Neal, is there anything about this that is causing us to violate our norms and standards for keeping kids healthy?
There's not a violation of keeping kids healthy. I would just tell you from my own experience and knowing teachers in the middle school, more space is a better educational space. And I mean, however you slice it. So I would give you an example. My daughter's in Mr. Shu's class. Mr. Shu's class has been able to take over 3 separate classrooms or something like that. They've been able to open up more space. The educational learning that happens when you have a large space, and anybody would wish, Merritt would wish that, our teachers would wish that. There's benefit to space. As Mr. Rusterholt says, cooperative strategies did not indicate that this is a undoable solution. And I don't have anything specifically in our policy that says we're outside of a norm for social distancing.
Right, because the question goes to whether this is causing us to, quote, move away from a practice that promotes physical distancing and a healthy learning environment, not what would we all wish is the ideal amount of square footage per student. Is there anything about this that jeopardizes
There's not
healthy
anything in our
environments?
procedure, right? There's nothing in our procedures that would be violated from a social distancing standpoint.
I mean, and as to the other point you were making, Dr. Neal, I mean, those sorts of things are not done in a vacuum because everything costs money. And there's a point at which if you don't have enough kids in the building, you can't justify hiring the teachers to pay those kids. You can't justify keeping the lights on. It's not a situation where, hey, we only have 50% of the classroom space being used. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to take all these classes that have 20 kids and we're going to divide them by half. Now everybody just has 10 kids in their class and we're going to hire teachers for 10-kid classrooms. We don't and cannot do that. At a certain point, you have to have the right amount of children per space to make all the finances behind maintaining the building and having the appropriate staff to educate our children. It all has to add up in the right way to make any kind of financial sense. Eventually, you fall off a cliff. And the answer isn't, great, now everybody gets a huge classroom and each kid gets 2 lockers instead of 1. The answer is, we have to move out of this building and consolidate into another one. And we hope we can find somebody to make use of this building because we as a school district no longer can. That's a problem. That is a really, really bad problem. So we have to stop pretending that we're in a situation where shrinking our kids is good. Oh, because we all have more space. That space has to be paid for by the taxpayers of this school district. And they're not paying us to operate empty museums. They're paying us to educate children. So that's why when we have a school like Merritt that is thriving, that's seeing 44% increase in enrollment year over year, who pays taxes in our district, we want to bring them in, which, by the way, the law requires that if we have a charter school, and we do, we have to, by November 1st, make it available, so to speak. I'm simplifying what the law says a little bit. It doesn't say we have to hand it to them, but we have to make them aware that we have these underutilized buildings, and all of our schools are underutilized under the definition in the law. We have to make the charter school aware of it and basically let them have an opportunity to see if they can make use of it, because the law favors using school buildings as schools, not renting them out to the city, nor to some other institution of higher learning or nonprofit or what have you. We're here as with property of the school district for the benefit of the children in the school district, not for the community at large per se. That's why the law favors making sure that charter schools can make use of school buildings versus some anti-charter school boards who just sort of mothball these buildings and spend taxpayer money to leave them empty and idle. We're not going to do that here.
I have a question for Dr. Neal, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
When schools are designed, what percentage of capacity is a healthy capacity for the school? Is it still healthy if a school is operating at 100%?
So we call that functional capacity, and some of the discussion have been our functional capacity today is very different than our functional capacity in the 80s and 90s because of the way that we design classes. So our special education rooms, some of our ELL rooms, our ELL space, the way that we differentiate learning into small groups, all of those things today are different. To answer your question directly, no school should be at 100%. I think cooperative strategies, suggested kind of the 80% rule, getting into the 90s, and you're still okay, but no school should function at 100% functional capacity. I think to really answer this question, there is this underlying fear, and 2 years ago, we'd never even be talking about this. There's this underlying concern that we would go back through a COVID-type pandemic and there wouldn't be space at the middle school to spread the kids out. It was just circumstance. The middle school had the space. During COVID, they spread the kids out, and it was a safer environment according to medical experts by spreading the kids out and reducing the transmission of disease. That presupposes a COVID return, which again, nobody's going to be able to say. We were at a place 2 years ago where it was advantageous to have this space that they had. And I think that's the essence of this question.
Anyone else? Many people voiced concerns about leasing underused spaces outside an established process. How do we know this lease is the best option for the district when the district has not sought out applications from other entities such as other charter schools, Pike Peak Community College, and the city for use of this space?
I think that we weren't out looking for another school. Another school came to us. And when students from our own district, families from our own town and community, when they reached out, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, with a need, and a dream and a vision for educating kids, that's what these buildings were built for. They were built on our taxpayers' money. They were built on money from the state. And so I believe they're here to serve our kids first. I would say that if several charter schools or Pikes Peak Community College all came to us at the same time and There were other organizations clamoring since 2012 at underutilized facilities saying, hey, we'd like to use that and we'll pay you to do it. Well, that would have been something to consider, but it didn't happen. So we did have a school that came and said, can we please? And so when they showed that they were a viable working public school, I thought, I personally believe the best place for a public school that's with people from our community is to be in one of our public school buildings. So no, there was nothing else to consider.
That being said, I can appreciate that. I think the question revolves around process. And the process that Director Illingworth pointed to in state statute, specifically stating that we, as a district, can make it known, especially within our district, like if there was a charter school within our district that was chartered by WPSD and we were authorizing agency for that, that we would make them know, make that space known to them on November 1st. Well, last November, Merritt was not chartered by WPSD. Now that they are, I think the question there specifically related to process is that we haven't gone through. Back up. The law doesn't state that we can't lease it to someone else. The law doesn't state that we cannot lease it or create a facility use agreement with a charter school prior to November 1st. So the law does not prohibit us from doing that. I'll admit that. But I would say that there is a process that is laid out in law so that, as was described just a second ago, so that school buildings are used for schools. But I would say that we've not gone through that process. That what we're experiencing now is actually an accelerated attempt to bring Merritt Academy into our facilities. And if we'll remember, it wasn't necessarily precipitated. The impetus was not Merritt Academy coming to us as much as it was a group of concerned taxpayers who came to the district, who came to a board meeting, or at least I believe it was a working session. And it was the same evening that Corporate Strategies was presenting to us as well. And so I won't presume to know the motivation behind that or judge that other than what's already been stated here. But I would say that that initiated the process. And we just got to call it what it is. It's like that initiated the process, because in that presentation, that group of concerned taxpayers also brought a proposed solution, which required our staff, Dr. Neal, to think rather quick on his feet, to start looking at alternatives. I believe, if I could be so bold as to say, that group of concerned taxpayers would not have come to our meeting unless this board wanted them there. And so that being said, I believe that this board has actually, this is my opinion, based on what I'm seeing and witnessing, this board has chosen to not follow the process laid out by state statute and has chosen to accelerate a process for various reasons. But I would say that the concerned taxpayers group that came initiated that. So I just wanted to bring that into clarity so that we're clear. And we're not telling ourselves a narrative that isn't accurate. But that's how I perceived it. And I'm open to being corrected on that. But I think for me to answer this question is, I don't think we've gone through the process that would have helped us as a board determine what the best options were. I don't think that was really the question as much as it was, have we gone through the due diligence in the process? And I would say that we have not.
Can I just, you said to open to a question, but I'll ask Dr. Neal instead, Mr. Austin. Do you know, you've dealt with charter schools before, and just the state statute says in part that a underutilized facility must be offered to a charter school by November. That doesn't mean it has, does that mean that it must be offered in November, or it must be offered by November?
It must be advertised as available if it is beyond 250 seats, and the law does not contemplate partial schools. It contemplates school. Now, that's really technical if you read the words, and a vacant facility or a vacant school has to be advertised. It has to be, communicated to those charter schools within the chartering authority. So we are required in 2 cases, both the high school and the middle school, to make Merit aware of, as of next November, we're required to let them know that these spaces are available. Then the second step is that they must express a desire to move into those schools. Now, again, are they vacant schools? Neither school is vacant. So there's some dispute on whether or not that would be the legitimacy. Like, we don't, in Denver Public School, they had 52 schools or something like that sitting vacant. And that 15 years ago was the impetus for this statute to be modified. And that was schools were sitting vacant, or buildings, maybe not just schools, but, utility buildings and other, transportation buildings were sitting vacant when the district was at a reduced enrollment, and charter schools were not being given an opportunity to move into those schools.
Can I ask you one more follow-up
Yes,
question
sir.
on that, just so I understand and to clarify what Director Austin said? The school is to report underutilized school space. So it's not just if it's a vacant building that they have to report or notify. So if it's underutilized, in your mind, does that mean then that if it's underutilized, then you would have to make it available to them if they had an interest in it and could come to an agreement on it?
Interest and agreement are the operative questions.
So if they did,
I mean,
right
the-
now,
The
in this-
district would have to say, yep, this makes sense for, there's nothing forcing you to create a facility use agreement with anybody. But there is some contemplation in statute that there is a good faith conversation about, hey, we have an empty building, we have a vacant building.
Or we have a underutilized building.
Vacant,
correct?
it really, the law contemplates and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to get too far down this road without asking legal counsel. My understanding of the law is that it is a vacant building, not a shared school situation.
Well, I'll have to jump in.
Go ahead.
So to clarify, the statute in question is 2230.5, 104, subsection 7.5, and it specifically says vacant or underused buildings. An underused building is defined in that statute as basically having 250 spaces that are not being used. That it could take another 250 students.
I got my 250 right.
Right. So, but I mean, so yeah, your middle school and your high school right now could basically take about 500 more students than are currently enrolled. So they are underused buildings. So, so the statute does contemplate the situation that this school district finds itself in. And it's true what Dr. Neal says. The statute does not force us to let them move in. It does force us to let them know that it could be moved into. It does force us to consider an application, not just by a charter school authorized by the district, but it also actually says charter applicants. So it contemplates the situation where you'd have a school like what happened with Merit, where they want to be a charter school authorized by the district. They are a charter applicant and they want to enter in that conversation about, well, it really helps us have a functioning operation plan and a workable budget if we could have our space in this building whether it's vacant or underused. What the statute absolutely does, though, is it puts a thumb on the scale to favor that if you have a vacant or underused building, that it will be made available to a charter school and that there will be a good faith attempt to let them use the building. It's not the case that it says, hey, you got an unused building, take bids, see whatever is going to bring in the most money, and then that's the one you're going to take. It puts a thumb on the scale to make sure that a charter school is not being left out in the cold. And really, when we say that, we're talking about kids being left out in the cold because of anti-charter school districts. And that is the reason that the legislature modified the statute to do that, because there were many districts, not just in Colorado, that's a nationwide thing, that see charter schools as their competition. I've seen, and it's not Colorado, but superintendents or union presidents elsewhere described saying, well, if I've got an empty school building and the charter school wants to come in and take it, that's a little bit like Coca-Cola renting out a bottling plant to Pepsi. They see it as competition. Parents trying to send their kids to school do not see it as competition. The legislature does not see it as competition. Our business is to educate children. They're all public schools. And we've got school buildings that need to be used as schools, not as food centers or museums or something like that. So that's what that statute does. Anybody can look it up, and you're going to see it basically requires us to give a charter school a fair shot, let them know if we have underused buildings, and it actually requires that if we are not going to let them move into it, that we have to have a public meeting where we say we're not going to let them move into it, and we put in writing why we're turning them away. We don't have to do that if the city asks us to use part of our building. We can say no. Statute doesn't require us to come in and explain that to the public. It does require us to explain it and put it in writing if we are turning away a charter school. And that's because there's very real, and it's real in this district too, there's very real anti-charter bias. And the law says you can't operate that way, and we're going to follow the law.
I want to add to that, please, that I was on the facility mastery plan in our first meeting. Susan Miller had encouraged us to have people, community people involved in the mastery facility plan. And as such, Merit Academy took the step and said, we want to be a part of your school district. These are our children, like we've set up here, that their parents and their families are taxpayers. They own businesses here in Woodland Park. They own homes here in Woodland Park. And to my knowledge, no other charter school up to this point or community college has knocked on our door. So I don't see how it's so complicated and how we're not going through procedures. Merit has been asking to be a part of this district for over 2 years now. Our schools are half empty. We can't be a board that just sits and waits for opportunity to knock. We're responsible for a budget. Merit Academy needs a building. Our buildings are half full. There's your sign.
Given that Merit acknowledged a backup plan to the lease, why does the board feel it is important to move forward at this time rather than waiting a year for the results of the master facilities plan and the option for the district to develop and properly execute a comprehensive plan where timeline and bids would be predetermined?
Well, I guess Chris and I take turns who goes after the other. There are some people who are in favor of process, endless process. There are some people who would like the process to go on until either one of us, or more of us gets thrown out of office, or we have to close down a school, or Merit Academy goes bankrupt. Like sometimes the process is the punishment. And the reality, as we've talked about before, is that this sort of discussion has been going on for years. This discussion about Merit Academy in particular has been going on for about 24 months. It consumed and caused, I think, the first school board election in more than 10 years. And this district had never seen 4 seats up at the same time that were contested. That never happened. So to say, we don't know what we're about here, and there's really no public demand, and we should just talk about it some more and think about it some more and hire more consultants, and we'd be in the same place a year from now, and the only thing that will have changed is that we will be even emptier from students, and consultants will have cashed even more of our checks. The reality, though, is that the numbers in the enrollment are bad, and they've been bad for a long time, and they're projected to continue to be bad. We're at 50%. We're down about 25% from where we were about 5 years ago in this district, and we're projected to be down about another 20% over the next 5 years. And look, I wasn't here 10 years ago, so I haven't been following the debate for that long. I've been here for 4 years, but it didn't take 5 minutes to look at the numbers and realize something has to be done. And if you've got, if you're bleeding out and you go to the hospital, they don't say, well, hold on a second, don't operate on that man and stitch up the leg wound there. Let's send him in for a CAT scan first, and then let's wait to hear what the oncologist says, because we don't know if there's something else going on inside there. Like, if there's a problem that is obvious to everyone, and there's also an obvious solution, then we are elected to take action on that. That is our public sworn duty. So I don't think that we need to debate this for another year, because we're not going to end up in a better situation. The time to act at long last is now.
I think that if you have an opportunity to do good, you should do good. And as long as it does good for all of our kids. So I don't think this has been rushed through. Normally we heard last week or the week before that it takes typically 4 months to charter a school. We've taken 6. We've been discussing the facilities plan and using one of our facilities for some time now. And I don't think that this has been a surprise that this is coming. I don't think it was a surprise months back in November that something like this would be coming. I think that timing has been very difficult, that perhaps it's taken too long. When we first started discussing this, that chartering Merit, it would be when we had, what's the gentleman's name who was going to do the, Tom Weston. When Tom was here, he thought that, we could do this in several weeks, maybe. And I specifically asked him, I said, can we do this evaluation quickly, much quicker? And he thought that maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks. I don't remember how long he said, but it was not months and months and months. If this had been done in a timely way, I think that we would be much further along and we wouldn't be stressing right now to see if we could make this happen. But to me, the bottom line is, if we can do good for all the kids, to quote a former president, no kid left behind, no second-class kids. If we have the ability to do good and not leave kids behind, why shouldn't we just do it? The question is that we have in our community is it good for our kids, WPSD kids only? Well, that is a very important question because they're part of the all. And yes, I do not want to move forward unless it is good for our kids and Merit's kids. So properly execute a comprehensive plan where timelines and bids could be predetermined. Well, I think that that can happen.
Do Merit and the board understand the intense pressure this compressed process is putting on students and staff?
I don't think we have a clue. I would welcome, if any are here, to have public comment. They can share, but I do know that, that it's probably more intense for them than we realize. I'll just offer that. That's just an actual like acknowledgement that the intensity of this is probably lost on us, to be honest.
I have talked to a lot of staff, and yes, there is a lot of stress on the staff. I think coming up, and there's a lot of stress on teachers and parents. Yes, this is stressful. I've sat and listened to staff members in their office, and I am very sympathetic about it. We talk about vacation time coming up in July, and this is not easy. I listen to the intensity and the struggle of the people at Merit Academy, and I know this is outside of this question. The commitment on both sides is amazing. The stress is very, very high. And no, I sympathize with it, and I feel badly about it. That I can't imagine the stress for some people. No, I can't.
I have to take issue with the idea that we don't have a clue. We may disagree about what's the right thing to do in the path forward. But we've all sat here at the same meetings. We all get the same public comments. We've all heard from our professionals who've said, we're professionals and we'll get the job done. To suggest that we have no idea what's happening out there and that only one of us might have special knowledge about something, that is not borne out by the record that's been in front of this board and this community for months, whether it's hearing from public comments, whether it's getting opinions from hired consultants, whether it's hearing from our professionals who are directly involved with it, whether it be Dr. Neal, Mr. Tuttle, Mr. Gustafson, Ms. Cassins, Principal Goings, Assistant Principal Street, to say nothing of what's going on over with the charter school that has been trying to partner up and join up with this district in a collaborative profession and manner in the face of relentless, withering, unfair, undeserved, and cruel commentary, whether it's at these meetings or online in the concerned parents of Teller County Facebook pages. It's nuts. And so I'm going to disagree that we have no clue whatsoever. And I'm going to take issue with the loaded premise in this question that those people are under intense pressure. They're professionals, they're experienced, they've told us they can get the job done, and I believe them. And I am not going to undermine their abilities, qualifications, and capabilities because a handful of people who want to see Merit Academy driven from this community no matter what just don't agree with the results of the election in November.
Okay, we're down to our last two questions. How will the board reconcile promises made to stakeholders if the budget projections for the facility sharing go beyond the amounts projected and certain needs and expectations are unmet?
As I understand, Merit Academy is responsible for their own expenses. So if those expenses go beyond what is projected, that is the responsibility of the board of directors for that public school, not this public school.
Anyone else?
And there's another way. If we're all idiots and we're wrong and it's a disaster, then there's going to be another election and we're going to get thrown out. And that's the good thing about elections is that they happen sometimes every 2 years, sometimes sooner. And everybody gets to vote and make their voice heard. And that's how, in a democratic government, the people get to have their say and get to put a check on their elected representatives if they think their elected representatives have gone off the rails or have proven to be foolish stewards of public trust. And so we will be held accountable by the people, ultimately, one way or the other.
Right, and I want to add to that, the community, I don't know if a lot of people realize how much community support Merritt has got. They have got some big donors and a lot of heavy hitter financial people behind them. And I don't see this even coming to pass because this community has worked too hard and they're not going to let Merritt fail, no matter what.
Okay, last question. After the town hall this evening, what is the process for approval or denial of the agreement?
I believe I spoke to that earlier at the onset. Any board member that would like to speak to that, or I can reiterate.
Well, I think you wanted us to sort of weigh in on that after public comment. So it's probably best to answer that question in light of after everybody's had their say. What do you think,
It's
David?
kind of as I described.
Yeah.
There's 2 signatures required on the lease. One is the president of the board and one is the superintendent.
If personally, I would still want to hear from public comment about concerns and issues that you have. I mean, tonight, I've heard these, I've read them, I've talked to people about the things that we've heard so far. Like I said earlier, I've been listening for quite some time about this. And I don't want to, we're here tonight, you're here tonight, you've invested your time in this. There's a lot of passionate feelings and emotions and questions, and I still want to hear from you before a decision is made. So I would like to reserve till after public comment.
Mrs. Prawl, you've been more than generous in your time tonight. On behalf of the board, if I may, just wanted to say thank you. It's not an easy place to stand for this duration of time. And
I
so,
just look at you guys and not the people behind
that's right,
me.
you could look at us and not them. So if the members of the audience of the board would please give Lindsay a hand, I would appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Members of the board and members of the community, we have 4 individuals for public comment. If you would please come to the microphone on the floor and limit your comments to 3 minutes as requested by the board. We have the 4 individuals in the room would be Aaron O'Connell first, Kim Morris second, Lisa Mullen third, and Stephanie Merle fourth. If you'd like to talk to Miss Lindsay, who just left the stage, if you're planning on giving public comment, please visit with Lindsay Prawl, which may be taking a 5-minute break so she can refresh. So if you'll wait for her to come in. But I would tell you that if we don't, thank you, Lindsay. Lindsay's in the back. If we would kindly wrap this up for any other additional public comment, that would be great so we can plan our time. So if you'd like to stand and return to the rear of the room, Lindsay is there and available to take your name and add you to the list. And that will digitally add to my list up here. Ms. O'Connell, thank you for your patience.
Before you go.
Just a second so I can start my timer.
Before, can I just bring up a point of order?
Please, of course.
I would just request that this board, while we have public comment, I've been observing over the last couple of meetings where we've had public comment that, and I don't know if it could be coincidence, but this board gets on their cell phones. during public comment. And I've even witnessed board members turning their back and having conversations while someone is speaking. And so at the very least, that's rude. And at worst, it's passive aggressive and it's communicating contempt. And so I'd like for us to keep the bar high and not lower the bar of our engagement. So I just wanted to ask President Rushholtz if we could just make sure that that's happening during public comment, that we not utilize our phones or get distracted in some way, but actually listen. Thank you.
Is that good? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. First off, if I get kicked out of a meeting because I'm trying to get you to follow your own rules, that is the kind of good trouble I want to get into. I didn't submit questions tonight. I submitted a lot last time. I had a hunch they would not be answered, and that hunch was correct. There was an important question about whether members of the board from Woodland Park met with members of the board from Merritt in private and without public notice. After it was asked, it was rephrased by a Merritt board member so that it could be answered in the way that you all wanted it to be. You never directly answered whether members of the two boards were meeting or talking in private. So I will take that as a yes. Yes, that members from each board have been conversing and plotting and planning behind the public's back to suit their own agenda. A yes that the public has been excluded from important decisions regarding our schools and our community. Regarding facility allocation, I believe the district should make sure its facilities and resources are used to maximum potential. But I do not believe this is a positive allocated use. Woodland Park District's financial review of Merritt Academy says, and I quote, "Merritt Academy's budgeting and financial reporting is disconcerting and inconsistent. Both of those things seem to be the antithesis of financial and taxpayer responsibility." President Rusterholz has said that staff wants this process to hurry up and happen. This is a misrepresentation at best, a blatant lie at worst. There is not a single staff member at the middle school who supports this. They are still afraid to speak out because you threaten and reprimand them for much less than voicing opinions and speaking truth. However, you can clearly see the way the community, teachers, and parents feel from the survey that the district sent out. In almost 800 responses, not 400, as Illingworth stated, there was an overwhelming desire to not move quickly to lease the building out to a charter school. You said the public wants to do nothing. What you were talking about is the question on combining schools. Yes, the public does not want you to combine schools. You are completely ignoring the question on the best use of space. The question asked how space should be allocated, and there were many other options, both available and preferred by the community. You clearly did not actually read or understand the results of the survey. The board brought up the fact that the music room is under construction during the school year and wanted to equate that to pursuing the FUA and being okay with construction during the school year.
1 minute.
You said it was possible to teach while under construction, but that was an emergency situation and disrupted a program and created undue stress. So you're okay with doing that to the entire school on purpose? With all due respect, you are not teaching in these spaces. You are not learning in these spaces. You sit up there with a smirk on your face, again, still ignoring me, and you make judgment calls on things you know nothing about and have zero experience with, let alone having to deal with it day in and day out. So you're looking at inconsistent financials, lack of community and staff support, massive delays in material delivery timelines for construction projects, and a very clear personal agenda from new board members. It's another in a long line of sad days for our district, and I will use your lack of integrity as an example of how I hope my children will never be. Signatures getting collected starts tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Mrs. O'Connell. Kim Morris, then Lisa Mullen, Stephanie Merle, and Melva Harris. Looks like you have your name on here. Thank you for your willingness to go back, ma'am.
I am a concerned parent. I am representing more than a dozen other concerned parents, or a handful, as was quoted earlier. Today, I spent the day with a bunch of seventh graders, a dozen of them at the zoo. Yesterday, it was 10 different seventh graders at Golden Bell while I helped assist the teachers so that they could pack up. I wanted you to know that because I'm an active volunteer. And like many others, we feel voiceless in all of your decision-making, regardless of all our endless emails, texts, coffees, submitted questions, and public comments. You won't hear our legitimate concerns regarding this process, and you won't complete your due diligence you were once elected to do. This board has proceeded to make accommodating Merritt Academy its only priority. How dare you disrespect the community by posting the lease on the Friday before the holiday weekend? How dare you require the questions be due on Memorial Day, a new low? How dare you schedule this very town hall, one in which the district never really notified the public about? A novel idea would be to invite the town to the town hall. Where was I? How dare you schedule this meeting for tonight? Let us all guess you'll be approving this lease just as it is, just as soon as you can. How dare you not allow for the District Accountability Committee to meet, review, and advise the board, regardless of its by law required? About the lease, 3 years really, beginning basically immediately. Brian's presentation, our guru, dated May 10th, 2022, quote, Charter School Financial Review. His conclusion states, and I quote, a compressed analysis window, inconsistent financial reporting, and the lack of a full year of Merritt Academy's operational existence make thorough fiscal analysis for adding a charter school to the Woodland Park School District difficult. Further, quote, a more effective analysis will be possible after a fiscal audit by a contracted external auditor, unquote. So again, why are we rushing? Why does the district need to move Merritt into the middle school this year? Why can we not wait and see if Merritt meets their own enrollment goals, passes its first year financial audit, and give them a year as a true charter school in our district? Before we spend more than about a quarter of $1 million accommodating them. You know, further, as far as my 1 minute, last board meeting, you scheduled on the same night as the Columbine all-school production, and you make parents choose between our children and you. Dr. Neal could not go and see his kid give a knock-knock joke and sing in the choir because he was here. Tonight, the 8th graders, they had their commencement today. And instead of families maybe being at home celebrating, they're here or they're watching online. And that is because of you making us choose between our children and coming here and holding you accountable. So I'll take my extra 30 seconds because I wasn't able to make public comment last time because I chose my kid. Finally, I would like you to stop the behavior of scheduling over other district activities. Please, as a respect to parents, all of us, the ones on the stage, the ones here, the ones online. My family will remain in this district next year. You will continue to see my face holding you accountable if you're actually here. I'm kind of hoping you're not here when we return in the fall. Yes, we will begin collecting signatures for your recall. Good night.
Thank you for your comments. Lisa Mullen, Stephanie Merle afterwards, and closing the evening is Melva Harris.
Good evening, Board. As a Merritt parent, I have complete confidence in what the Merritt Academy Board decides for the future of our school, including facilities use. I was there while they presented their vision to an interested group of parents several years ago. I noticed when they not only wanted better for their children, but others as well. I noticed all of the time commitment, sacrifice, valor, and perseverance they had along the way, even today, despite countless obstacles. I was there when they presented the charter to the former board, and it was denied, even though they were advised from their consultant to accept the charter. I was there when they became a contract school, and when the school opened its doors. I watched and participated with an entire team consisting of the board, administrators, educators, staff, parents, and students who worked tirelessly to excel as a school. We are a family. We had many challenges, and our staff rocked it, all while overcoming so many obstacles and putting our children first. I want to thank you, this board of directors, who I feel stood in the gap that was left by prior boards and administrations trying to take the needs of all students in our community into consideration. The one concern that I do have is actually the behavior of those opposing us. The problem, which was previously noted by the Merit Board president 2 weeks ago, is valid. Our Merit Board staff, parents, and students were also attacked. I listened to so many lies being told of us, heard of our people's cars getting keyed. We were verbally attacked in many ways. Our kids were harassed and stalked. Worst, though, was our kids being yelled at crazily by some school district parents just because we were Merit students and we wore a Merit hoodie. They did not seem to care about how their behavior and words affected our children. Anyone supporting this should be embarrassed. I have seen people that we sit in church with, have gone to school with, sat on the baseball field with, in Scouts with, in our community with, show a completely different side to them. One that demonstrated hate, division, anger, and the like. Intensity is a good word. So if I were to have any concerns, it would be that part of the community decide how to bridge the gap, and especially that we might be in close proximity. Even if we're not, we're still in the same community. We always have been. I know Merit has shown such grace and integrity, and I know that they will continue to do so. We stress that kind of virtue in our school, along with many others. I just pray that others can do the same regardless of where Merit lands, because this is our community. I encourage everyone to remember this, and our children are watching. I've said that before. They are watching how we act and how we portray ourselves and our feelings. Merit has a saying, a motto, it's Hodie Determinate Quas, and I know I'm going to say it wrong, but it's Latin, today determines tomorrow, and that we should all reflect on that, even if you're not part of Merit, because what we do and say today as a community affects our community, especially our kids. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Stephanie Merle, and then close the evening with Melba Harris.
A little taller. My name is Stephanie Merle. I haven't spoken before you before, but I have been here my entire life.
Miss Merle, I'm going to ask you to step forward just a little bit. I know the microphone's tough.
It's scary.
It is scary, sorry.
I've lived here my whole life. I've worked in the district as a substitute. Now I have a student who will be a 6th grader next year. You all tell us everything you do is for the children, all children of this community. I wonder daily what that lovely platitude means to you. Tonight, you sit here going through the motions so that soon you can give away the classrooms, lockers, and hallways my child was excitedly anticipating as her next chapter as a Woodland Park School District 6th grader next fall. You tell me this is in her best interest. I am struggling to reconcile what that best interest looks like to you. It looks to me like a child who cried when she learned of the plan to give away her school. It looks to me like a child who suddenly felt unsure and uncertain because you planned to give away the hallway that she knew, the lockers she thought of as hers. It looks to me like a child who doesn't understand why. It looks to me like a child who wrote the school board herself to express what she believes to be in her best interest. She heard nothing in return. I caveat, one board member acknowledged her letter. We all know which board member tends to care about the voice of the community. It looks to me like a child who will be trying diligently to learn in a construction zone rather than a safe and reassuring environment. It looks to me like a child who has lost more than they will gain. I wonder too, what best interests look like to the board when, for weeks, families and community members have given up countless hours to ensure transparency, to speak out, to be present, to be involved, all in order to try and protect our children's best interests. For most of us, best interests looked different before this board. It looked like volunteering in our schools. It looked like connecting with our children, our friends, our community. It looked like family dinners, where we should have all been tonight. It looked like homework help, cheering for our teams, knowing what really goes on with our children.
1 minute.
It looked like loving bedtime routines, where we should be now. It looked like time together. Instead, the board has spent months taking these precious hours and moments away from our children. Children they hold up as the reason they do what they do. Once you have given away our children's school, would this finally be enough? Will you then let those of us who have been present in our schools, been present in the classrooms, been present in the children's lives, finally get back to what we do best?
Time.
Actually looking after the best interests of our children?
Thank you, Ms. Merle, for your comments this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Melva Harris, thank you.
Good afternoon, or should I say evening. First, I really want to thank you because I know that some of you have really, you don't get paid for serving on the board, but you do pay a lot. And you've been insulted, talked about, accused, lied on. And I just want you to know that I really appreciate the fact that you're here and that everybody's children matters to you. What comes to my mind is what saddens me. I've only been coming a few months, but I don't think I've been to one meeting where there hasn't been the kind of harassment, the kind of put down, the sort of in your face. But my prayer is that the people who come, who fight against people who love their children and all children, will wake up and come to know that hatred toward you and what you're doing is really hatred toward children that they don't agree with their parents about. I really have a concern when people can't come together and at least give constructive criticism, where it has to be hatred, it has to be vilification. I'm standing here because my heart is heavy, because my prayers are that parents will learn how to teach their children love and not hatred, and show a demonstration of disrespect. I really have a heart, and I'm praying that the day will come when we will really come together, come back together as people who love all children. I hear these talks about the Merit children as though they're three-headed monsters, as though the school coming in is going to change the life. And I keep wondering, is it jealousy? Has it something to do with they don't believe their children are smart enough? That saddens me, because you need to love your children enough to know that one school coming in that might have raised the bar ought to be really an incentive and not a disincentive. But not only that, but all of our schools have got to raise the bar. This nation used to be the first in education. This nation is almost last on the list, which means Colorado is not a big deal because it's above, or a district is not a big deal because it's above some of the others. The nation is in trouble. And there are too many people helping the nation to stay mediocre, to not fight for our children to become critical thinkers, to not fight for our children to look at and see if a college group can stand and vilify a person coming in because they disagree with them, and these are all studying to be attorneys, then look at what we're raising up.
1 minute.
Thank you. We're raising up children where it doesn't matter what they say to adults. We're raising up parents who will teach their children to be what they shouldn't be. I am concerned about this district. I'm concerned about Woodland Park. I come not because I have children in school, but because our children are our future. It doesn't matter what part of the city they come from. They are our future, and we should be praying for the best for them. And when we show an attitude that we can't even demonstrate courtesy, kindness, just a respect for what other people's opinions are that are different, then we're showing them that this nation's values have gone to the dirt. That's not who we are supposed to be. That's not how we're supposed to demonstrate our differences. And I want you to know that my heart is for you, but it's also for the same people who may shout and clap when I'm finished, meaning in disagreement, and that's okay, because it takes nothing from me, but it does take something away from their children and what they say they stand for. So the small group who says they're the entire group, I just want to say my heart is saddened by the demonstration of lack of respect, lack of discourtesy, and the whole thing around who Merit is. It's a school, and it's a school for children, and all of our children make a difference. And my prayer is that I walk in one day and everybody knows that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris, for your comments.
So at this time, are there any closing comments from the directors? And then I will go.
I do. So the ask, Dr. Neal, was for our input. And just to get kind of a sense, a consensus of sorts. I just want to point to something very practical, actually. And it has to do with the prioritization of capital improvements that the Board of Education has tasked you and your administrative team to fulfill. That monies from our reserve was allocated for specific projects that I want to just reiterate will take precedent because those tasks were given to you last year. And I know that Miles and his team are working diligently to fulfill those obligations to the board. And so I would just offer that that remains a priority for the district. And that being said, I would suggest a couple of things here. I personally actually agree with much that was said here tonight about fiscal responsibility and about utilizing the district's resources to the best and to maximize for the sake of not only programming, but also just responsibility to the taxpayers. I agree with that, actually. And I actually would also say that I'm not arguing that Merit Academy should never utilize Woodland Park School District space. Actually, I'm not saying that at all. What I am suggesting is that the timing on this, if we could wait, if we could prioritize the existing obligations that the board has tasked your team with, and if we could imagine a start time later, that would be, for me, just really helpful in knowing that we're doing everything that we can to just actually give you the opportunity, Dr. Neal, to do your job in a way that includes a staff and includes a collaborative partnership with Merit and their staff. And that's going to take time. I would say that if we want to really anticipate a long-term relationship, which I imagine is on everybody's mind, that the tone that we're setting for you and your team to work together with Merit Academy and their team to collaborate, to come up with the solutions that are best for not only the Woodland Park School District students. Well, let me just back up on that. For the students that are involved in the middle school, as well as the students that are involved in Merit Academy, because they are actually under the umbrella now. I think that that tone is important because what it'll do for the teams is it'll give you an opportunity to work together in a pace that is not compressed, that does not overburden not only the staff from both schools, but also the staff as it pertains to the prioritization of the capital improvements. I just don't want to see the essential work that is going to be required for Merit Academy to use the middle school to jump to the top of the heap. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, that's it. That's what I want to say.
Thank you, sir.
I'll start out by saying that this has been a long process, and it's not one that we make up out of whole cloth. As we've talked about the law earlier, when you look at that law, we are following the process set out in the law. We can't do otherwise. And that law says that a board of education will make a decision on application by a charter school or charter applicant to use an unused building like the middle school within 90 days. We are well within that window. This is the time. It is not the situation where we can just say, we like to sit and think on it for like several more months or 6 months or a year or whenever the next election happens to roll around. We have to follow a process that is set out in the law, and it's set out for this very thing. So the time is now. We have been going at this for about 90 days. I guess even a little bit longer if we're counting from at least the middle school town hall on March 3rd. So it is my belief that the FUA that has been posted is a satisfactory one. It's a work of compromise. I don't think there's any question about that. Between the school and the administration, as well as the various members of this board. So I'm not in favor of any further delay, and I would urge the superintendent and the president to go ahead and execute the FUA that has been negotiated and publicly posted.
We're talking about sharing a building with Merit receiving, I think, approximately 27% of this building. And there are improvements that need to be made, yes. There's going to be cost in anything. We bring a community college in. Anything we bring in, there's going to be improvements and there's going to be money. Merit is paying for this construction. Is Woodland Park School District going to pay up front? I believe they are. But we're putting so many constraints on a school that's just trying to get started. And we're talking about sharing a building. Children are going to have to grow up and share things. 27% of a building. This is what this argument is all about. 27% of space that's not being utilized, that's going to make this town fall apart. I don't think that's the case. Meredith stepped up. These kids are our children too. And we talk about how the kids and the teachers in the middle school are going to fall apart like a $2 suitcase. Well, I don't believe that. I think our kids are resilient. I think we have professional teachers. They're going to go on teaching in their classrooms, their newly assigned classrooms, just like they did last year. If the community, if we in this room allow that and think of what positive can come out of this. We're arguing about 27% of a building that's underutilized. So yes, Merit has put tons and tons and hours, hundreds of hours. Dr. Neal and his admin has put hundreds of hours into this. We're ready. The time is now. And what happens if we push the can down the road for another year? Are they going to come back? Are we going to have another $40,000 to put another facility mastery plan together? Are we going to do the facilities usage agreement all over again? The time is now. The children are ready, and I believe the teachers and the kids in the Woodland Park Middle School are resilient. They're changing a classroom. If we're going to prepare our students for the future, we need to stand up as adults and look at this in a positive way and serve all our community. We're not neglecting the middle school students. We're not. Their days will carry on. They're going to get exceptional instruction in a different part, or maybe not at all, a different part of the building. But let's look at the big picture. We're arguing over less than 30% of a building. And I plan to proceed with the facilities uses agreement.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Thank you. Well, this has been going on a long time. And this is something that I don't take very lightly at all. There's a lot of families that this is a very, very emotional thing. They've invested so much into teachers and staff. But a decision has to be made. I hear mostly there is no objection to chartering a school. It's the timing of it. I've heard there is not really an objection to sharing a school. It's the timing of it. So where does the balance, where do we find a way forward? How much time is good? I've heard wait till the facility study comes in. Well, I've heard from the facility studies, and I heard from Susan Miller that this is a doable thing. It's a very doable thing. What about our teachers? What about the stress on our kids? What about the stress on our staff? I think that those are all important questions. To me, the most important thing is people and relationships. There's nothing that's greater than that to me. In this situation, when I have to make a decision, the board's going to make a decision, then I have to decide whether I'm going to sign the lease or not. Or not the lease, but the facilities use agreement. Half the people, or a significant amount of people, are going to be angry at me, if they're not already. And a lot of people are going to be exuberant. Where do you lie? How do you do what's right? So I want to tell you, here is how I am thinking. I've heard from a lot of you. I am in favor of school choice, so I voted in favor of the charter agreement. I'm in favor of moving a public charter school into a public school building that is underutilized. Here's where I have a problem, and I think I have a solution on moving forward. Finding middle ground. I would like to ask our administration, WPSD administration, and Merit Academy administration to join together for this final step. A big step, one more big step for all of us. I'm concerned about, so that's what I'm going to ask you to do something. But there's some guidelines for it, because for me, our staff has worked, WPSD staff has worked very hard through a lot of this. Merit Academy has worked hard. Our staff has vacations and things coming up this summer, and I would not want to ask to interrupt those things. But I know that there's always a path forward. So here's what I'm going to ask. I would like to ask if our administration staff and Merit's administrative staff would come together with a plan and a timeline to make this happen, and find out what that timeline is going to be for you to get into the middle school, with all addressing the concerns. So there's no second class kids. WPSD kids, well, we're all WPSD, but the middle school kids, the Merit Academy kids, no one's better than the other. They're all our kids. We all love them, and we want the best for those kids. So without having any second-class kids and all kids having facilities and treated on an even level, equally, I'm going to ask that you guys get together and collaborate on that. Is that something that you can do, Dr. Neal, or willing to do?
Yeah, so, and we're going to have to do that regardless. We
Well,
have to,
but
we have to come up,
scheduling it.
we have to put up a project plan
Okay.
as the next stage. And so whether that's done by my staff or whether that's done by an independent contractor.
Well, I was going to say a couple other things too.
Okay.
But the main thing I want to know is will Merit Academy's staff work together and collaborate on this to come up with a timeline that is reasonable for both of the schools? Are you willing to commit to that, something like that? Did you want to come up to the microphone or anything? Well, if you need to, yeah, I mean, that is a question that I have. While she's coming up here, that if one suggestion that I would have, since our staff, Miles has so many things to do and he is the facilities director, I'm going to suggest that you would find a project manager, just throwing that out there, that could work with Miles. I don't know how that would work, but that would be a suggestion that I would have, is that a project manager would be put into place. So my question, Nicole, would be, are you willing to come together to collaborate as one team with one purpose together moving forward for the facility?
Absolutely. And David, if I could backtrack you just a little bit, this has already started to happen. And we did not get to this point by not having conversations. Gwen and I met with Miles what is today? I don't even know, maybe 2 days ago? No, it was last week. We already went over a project plan, a timeline. He already has things outlined as critical for needing to be done prior to August for school to start on time. In that conversation, which I did reference earlier, this is when he said that so long as we can move forward and not continue to delay and delay and delay, the bids can be done. The work can get scheduled. Is it a tight timeline? Yeah, it is, but it's getting tighter the longer this gets pushed out. So this plan is already in place. We sat down and he showed us all of the different categories of priority. What was high priority? Absolutely getting the crash doors in, getting the PA system rewired and worked on, the phones, the internet, all that. They have accounted for all of that. So I believe what you're asking for has already been done. I mean, Dr. Neal, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of this work has already been completed.
It started. So here's the rub.
Not completed, but at least started.
Right, here's the challenge that we're going to run into. There's going to have to be a decision point where a project manager needs to say, school is opening and it's time to open the doors and we don't have certain aspects of the project done. So there's the discussion, there's the linchpin, if you will, in the opening of school. Miles, I think, and the team have done a really good job saying, these are the critical junction points that have to be finished before a certificate of occupancy can be given to the tenant. And so that needs to be agreed upon like immediately, because that's the process that has to be developed. So to Mr. Austin's point, we have $2.6 million of investment that's going into infrastructure already in the district. And I applaud this board and the previous board for doing something that's not been done in a long time, and that is reinvesting in the infrastructure of our schools. So that's great. We also have special education classrooms, probably of the most concern in the middle school. They're going to have to be reconfigured and rebuilt. Those have to happen before, and I think we're all in agreement on this. We haven't had any disagreement on the construction of what minimum standards have to be met. But in the mix of that, we also have to understand that the professionals, the builders, the contractors, the supplies, that all has to happen before a certificate of occupancy or an occupancy granting can happen. And that may not be the first month of school. We have to accept that. And if we come to a trusted advisor like a project manager, I really don't want Miles to be stuck in the middle of kind of having to figure that out while he's also working with the $2.6 million in renovations throughout the district. So I think to have an independent, somebody that's working with both parties to kind of work that through, that has a realistic discussion. Are we going to delay? I don't know. Is it going to be a short delay? I don't know. But I think that team needs to continue to be transparent and feeling what that feels like.
That's exactly what I'm asking for. I am willing to sign the facilities use agreement. I think that my questions have been answered as far as the use of the building. The problem that I have is that I would like to see a peaceful, good faith collaboration moving forward to find what that timeline, when they would be able to move into the school. Whether, I don't know what that time would look like. This team would have to come together and come up with that answer.
I would agree.
But
I would too, yeah.
So you're in agreement with that. You're in agreement with that. The only thing that I think this board needs to know is that special needs kids aren't going to be left out or going to be second class kids, that computer labs and things like that, or whatever needs to be done, that we work together as a team, a community, to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. So if we're willing to do that, and our kids are not second class, that no one is a second class kid, nobody's left behind. I know I'm repeating myself, but I have to do it so I think through it. So if that happens, then I am willing to sign the facilities use agreement.
Then with that, there just needs to be that transparency to think about a plan B. So one of the questions tonight that was asked is, what is Merit's plan B if school doesn't open on time? I really need Merit to think about that as
Well,
you're-
I think that I'm going to interrupt on purpose. I think that that's part of your team, you guys coming together and you have that discussion, because we're just the governing board. We're not the experts on making it happen. You guys, you especially are the expert to make things happen.
Thank you.
David, if I could just say, excuse me. I think what you're looking for from both sides is an agreement that there will be a positive, collaborative relationship moving forward. And I would argue that we have proven that we have had one. Dr. Neal and I have been working, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we've been working very well together, communicating well together. I've worked with Miles. I think that that relationship has been moving along very well. I see no reason why there would be any negative or bad faith actions from the administration that we have been working with. I think they understand that we are working toward something for all of our children.
So, and I would agree. The one thing that I am cautioned again with, I've got a sound engineer that might or might not still be here, Ron, and 4 other guys that are, this work is outside of their work, right? This work is really outside of the standard work of the summer. So I can't tolerate over pressurizing them. They need to be able to have that voice. And we've agreed that is very possible and needs to happen, and it will happen. I just want to respect staff's capacity right now in prioritization. And I think that's really where we are.
Yeah.
So if the president has
I
agreed,
think that I mean, speaking for me, but I'm guessing from what I've heard from the board, that we would agree with that. It's just that you guys come together and come up with the plan.
Okay.
I think that it's a good facility use agreement. It's just moving forward from here with those conditions, I think that we would want to see happen.
Well, and I know that some of the things that Miles has been waiting on, he has to wait for a signed agreement before he can move forward. So some of the things I think you might be asking for aren't even a possibility. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong, aren't even a possibility until there is a signed agreement. So.
Well, you guys are the experts.
I do hear the majority of the board having the pleasure to sign the agreement.
It sounds like there's already good faith collaboration between the district and the school. I think you guys have been tracking the meetings and where the board has been going with this. And what I'm hearing is that the next critical step to continue that important work and not waste what's been done already is that the FUA needs to be executed.
Correct. And if I could also, I know there's a concern about the cost of these improvements, and you hear $150,000, that is a lot of money. That being said, if you read the agreement, the amount Merit's going to be paying on a yearly basis, the 150 would be a one-time, get this work done. Yearly basis, Merit is going to be covering over $250,000 of overhead costs for the building. That's in the contract. So a 3-year contract, we're looking at $750,000 that the district is not having to pay, that Merit is covering. Even if you take the 150 out of that, you're still looking at a net 600,000 positive. Now, we are going to cover the construction that is necessary for us to occupy the space, but there's still a positive there. As I said, I know 150,000 is a lot of money, and it absolutely is. But when you look at how much we're covering of overhead, it kind of, and with the fact that we're going to be covering the expense for what we need, it kind of washes.
Thank you, Nicole.
Sorry?
I said thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else did you want to say?
Oh, I have a lot that I wrote, but I really don't know that it's necessary to say it. Sometimes I think the better part of valor is not saying things. And all I guess would say is that, like Lisa, I don't know if Lisa said earlier, the thing that pains me the most through this entire process is the amount of hatred I have seen come out of my fellow neighbors. The lies. There was an attack on me tonight because I was that board member at the other meeting who I guess somehow changed the question, which was not intentional, although I'm sure the people who are sitting in the back whispering among themselves would have something to say about that. I will correct the record right now. Have individual board members spoken with other individual board members? Yes, we have. Has it ever been in a quorum situation? No, it has not. It has usually been one-on-one for a conversation, which is not against the law. It is oftentimes expected so that more detailed conversation can be had so that when you bring it to a board meeting, it's more concise. There's nothing wrong with having a conversation. It is no secret. Dave Illingworth's wife is one of my good friends. We get together, our kids get together. I'm not gonna not talk to him because he's a board member. So have individual board members spoken with other individual board members? Absolutely. Have we ever been in a situation prior to the last meeting where we have multiple board members together in a quorum type situation? No, we have not. It's as simple as that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I think
Dr. Neal, do you have
I
any-
wrote so
oh,
much, but I'm
go-
just not
I'm
going to
sorry.
say it. No, I'm tired. I'm really
No, and
tired. So
Thank-
I'm
thank
done
you.
for tonight. Thank you for, do any of you have any questions before I leave the stage?
I don't.
So my only statement is it now relies on the collaborative team,
Yes.
as well as materials and supplies. Mr. Alston.
And with that, can I simply encourage us as a board to find the norm that we're going to function in when it relates to the collaborative teams working together? Can we also make a commitment, as it were, or at least an agreement that we will not interfere with that work? Whether it's because we're dissatisfied or we think something should be happening faster or different. I just think that if we're going to honor the delegated authority for this business decision to happen in a collaborative sense, which I believe is going to be setting a tone for many, many years, that we let them do that. And that we stay out of their way and let them do what they do, as has been described as the experts. Can we do that? I think that's going to be an important question for us to be able to answer, so that not only do they have the assurance that they have like the green light go, let's make this happen, and they report to us. Yeah, but it's just I think, a good practice for us as a governing body to just give that oversight and to be aware, but not to interfere with their work. If we could make sure that that's part of the conversation too, I think that would be very helpful for everybody involved.
Well, when I don't want to interfere either, because I am certainly not an expert at remodeling a school or what it takes to do that. I see myself or the role of a board as a macro governor, not the micro down there. That's the wrong carpet color, or interfering with it or manipulating the process. But I think that as I would be neglecting, I certainly want to keep an eye on it. If I didn't watch, then I would think I would be neglecting my responsibility as a director. But interfering, I agree. I completely agree with you on that. But I will be watching and making sure that things are going smoothly. All I want to hear is it's going smoothly. So if that's where I'm at on that one. Anyone else? Well, I'll tell you, I want you to know that once again, I am in favor of it. I do plan on signing it with Dr. Neal, with all the parts of the discussion that we had.
Sue, did you have something?
Yes.
Thank you. I thought I saw maybe you leaning forward.
I don't intend to interfere. Dr. Neal is the expert on the facilities, but it is my responsibility as a board member, since Dr. Neal is the board's employee, to have the oversight. And that's my responsibility by law. So and I don't anticipate this, but to see a train wreck or something that I don't think it's in the best interest of the community, I can't sit here and say that I'm going to step back and have no responsibility in this, because there is responsibilities of the board, and I intend to uphold those responsibilities.
And Sue, my commitment is to also uphold mine to report to the board progress along that process too. Happy to provide that, or, I know that obligation too.
Well, any further discussion tonight? We are at the end of our agenda. Any other comments, discussion, or otherwise? Then may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr.
Illingworth?
Secretary.
Aye.
Patterson?
Aye.
Rusterholz?
Aye.
Austin? Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.